when it comes to I'm Your Venus, in focusing on Paris's burning star, Venus Pellagatti Xtravaganza, this sort of acts like a companion piece to get to know the star better outside of just the iconicness of their quotes and phrases and really getting to know their backstory. Never mind what they mean to people beyond what was seen in Paris's burning. So to kind of go a little bit deeper, when it comes to Venus, when it comes to I'm Your Venus, whatever, what this specifically does is kind of give you a full 3D version of who Venus is, not just in terms of what we saw in Paris's burning, but also give a sense of her influence, her legacy, especially within the House of Extravaganza in modern times, while also addressing the life we didn't really get to hear or see in Paris's burning, which is her brothers who, even 20 plus some odd years later, I think maybe even 30, they're still trying to get answers regarding what happened that led to Venus's death, and also in the process of trying to not just honor their sister, but also kind of redeem themselves in a way by figuring out ways to make it so that when it comes to Venus's legacy, the dead name of who Venus was, or rather what name they were given before, is not associated in any which way with who they ultimately got to know and truly deeply love. So off the bat, when it comes to highlights, it has to be that when it comes to dead naming anybody, whether it's Venus or the other trans people on this, it doesn't happen. When it comes to Venus, her brothers do not mention whatever name she was given at birth. When it comes to the others, they avoid it. And one thing that particularly felt noteworthy was that even when it came to like a library card that Venus got not too long before she died, they also blur out what her name was. And one of the things that, between reading Janet Mock's book, listening to various interviews she's done, what's her name? The last name is COX. She was in a show we just saw in January, and also Orange is the New Black, Laverne Cox. What we've learned from watching and reading their stuff is that the reinvention, really affirming your authentic identity, it comes with having to remove a part of what is part of your story, but it's not something you want to have as an essential part in terms of something that gets revisited, especially because whether it's then or now, it could often push people, use that as a weapon to try to make it seem that how you present yourself now, how you live your life is not authentic. So by removing any opportunity for people to know Venus's name at birth, by making sure that when it comes to those who are part of House of Extravaganza now that are trans, by making it clear that this is who they are. Yes, there is some obligation to acknowledge that they were given a different name previously. That doesn't matter. Who they are now as Amara, as Giselle, as Venus, that is who you will meet. That is who you could have the opportunity to learn about, who you can like, love, become friendship with, sisters, whatever. That is who you should accept, and anything else is not going to be acknowledged for. It's not who they are. It's not part of their story anymore. Getting to the next highlight, I have to admit, it was weird and awkward in a way, but I also at the same time appreciated that, especially with her eldest brother, it was acknowledged their part, and there was some responsibility taken on regarding how they contributed to, I won't say to Venus's death, but certainly contributed to the persona that we saw and what led to a lot of the potentially negative things that was in Venus' life, while also acknowledging the positive as well. Like, for example, the eldest brother seemingly privately accepted Venus in terms of Venus being the woman, and that is her life. But at the same time, you can tell, and even sometimes it shows in this documentary, that they struggled with Venus privately living her life as a woman versus being in public, especially in a way that could associate them as family. And I think in many ways, it made it so that the understanding of what they're doing with this documentary kind of meant more, because it made it clear it's not just about ego. It's not just about trying to have some type of redemption. It's really about them trying to do better. And while they can't reconcile with Venus in the flesh, they can at the very least do what is possible as a living to honor their sister. And while it may not make up for all that they did or their part into what led to her untimely demise, if you even consider what anything that they did led to that, at the same time, at the very least, it shows that both then and now, Venus is forever their sister, and they want to make sure that anybody who sees this documentary, anybody who saw Paris is Burning, anyone who sees her as the icon, the legend, they know that despite what often people think that people only go to houses when they're unloved by their families, her brothers deeply loved her. Parents might have been a little iffy, but her brothers deeply loved her, respect her, and want to make sure that as people continue to discover her, that they're aware that Venus was ultimately, deeply, passionately loved by her brothers, both then, now, and forever. So getting to the next highlight, a small one we have to mention is that we appreciate documentaries so much more now because in terms of entertainment wise, yeah, it's beautiful to watch something like Paris is Burning, Wildflower. There's another one that we saw called I Didn't See You There. And yes, these do give us some level of representation, give you a viewpoint that maybe isn't of your own life. But at the same time, what we don't fully take note of, which you can see when it comes to Venus's brothers or the people who are part of the House of Extravaganza, is this also kind of gives you a cinematic capsule of somebody you love dearly and perhaps gives you a different side of them that they never exposed you to. Like, when it comes to Venus's brothers, it sounds like with the way they described her that she never let them into what she was doing at the balls and the life that she had in New York at all. But through Paris is Burning, through getting to know members of the House of Extravaganza as they do in the film, they get to see their sister as a full three-dimensional person and not just the person that they grew up in the same house with or who eventually lived in their grandmother's house while they lived across the street or down the street. And at the same time, when it comes to members of House of Extravaganza, they get to see the family who gave birth to Venus in a way. They get the sense of this is a people who, and you can tell with one of them named Jose that, he had complicated feelings. And when I say he, I mean Jose had complicated feelings. He had complicated feelings about meeting the brothers because, of course, there's this sense of who Venus said they were, especially for what led to her needing a house. But now it's many years have passed. These conversations that are perhaps long overdue, and you see a bit of healing in it. And through this documentary, you get a sense that, I won't say time heals all wounds, but you can definitely feel that time in documentaries, they can allow you to gain a sense of at least the path towards forgiveness. Maybe not forgiveness for whatever was done, but at least forgiveness for yourself for not knowing. Which leads to the last highlight, which we're going to try to tread a little carefully about, just because when it comes to Venus Extravaganza, Venus Pellagatti Xtravaganza, proper name, there's this sense that she's an icon, she is a legend, and to fully flesh her out, there is sort of a danger to it. Like, for example, one of the brothers dares to say that at one time they believed that Venus was a crackhead, or better said, was doing crack. Because, Venus liked to party, and apparently that was one of the party drugs she liked. Certain things like that were very much offhand, wasn't trying to be dwelt on, anything like that, but I do feel like it's one of those moments where it's not about humbling the person, but trying to make it so that you understand that they were still very much a person. They had flaws, but at the same time, even with these flaws, they were still people who, they were still a person who could inspire the next generation, who, through just verbalizing what they wanted in life, like they wanted to have a husband, they wanted to adopt kids, be on the runway, it can still be something that inspires people like Amara in modern times to kind of take that baton and take it further, if not to the finish line. And in many ways, I would say, even with being a cis person, there's something about listening to Venus. And granted, most of us know Venus in some form or another. If it's not through the catchphrases, it's maybe for being sampled, like with Zelia Banks's oh my God, there's a song that she has that samples Venus's words, but I can't think of it offhand. But point of the whole thing is, it's a beautiful thing to get to know Venus beyond the phrases, beyond the icon status. Yet, for the most part, with the way that this documentary is handled, yes, there's that one moment where the brother probably told us something that we didn't need to know, but as noted, it doesn't go into dead naming. It just tries to give you a sense of who Venus was beyond the glamour shots, beyond the catchphrases, and really give you a sense that this was somebody who was a person that was deeply loved, who evolved into this notable figure, but at the same time, as big as she was also somebody's sister, both by blood and also through house. Overall, when it comes to I'm Your Venus, it goes beyond telling you why Venus Pellagatti Xtravaganza mattered, and it even, I would even say, goes beyond telling you why. Instead, through exploring how she lived, through exploring her foundation, it gives you a sense of how anything is possible for people. And yes, granted, unfortunately, Venus died tragically, but before that, it showed, and you can see an inspiration that people like Amara got. It showed what could be possible. It showed the glamour. It showed the level of possibilities that even today, with shows like Pose coming out and various films that feature trans people, you see that even now there's a need for Venus to exist. There's a need for Paris is Burning or I'm Your Venus to be out there and accessible, because everybody needs a level of representation that feels specific to them. Venus was Italian and Puerto Rican, just like Amara's Puerto Rican Italian, and they may not look the same, since Venus could definitely pass more for a white woman than Amara can, but still, everybody needs that person that connects with them in ways that others can't, and it allows them to feel seen. It allows them to maybe have permission, or maybe have a sense of a roadmap or blueprint to follow. And hopefully, as time goes on, not only will they perhaps get a confirmation of what happened to Venus beyond the murder, but even though I don't know about this administration, but maybe the next administration can really put a focus on not just slowing down or acknowledging what's happening to the trans community, but perhaps finally putting in place things that will make it so that just as AIDS is slowly but surely being phased out, just like murder rates are apparently going down in a lot of areas, maybe when it comes to the death and violence against trans people, that could follow suit.